in the front room. I remember I was in the living room and I heard an explosion. And, I was really, really, like shocked by that. I'm like, what is that?
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Joy.
I live in the US.
I live in England
And we were across the world.
on a mission. Welcome to this episode where we will be talking about our living situation in Taiwan, Japan, and the Ukraine. So, what was it like, Michelle?
Yep. So, like I said in our previous episode, we got there and we are jet lagged. So, I met my roommates quite jet lagged. And I had two roommates at the time. Well, not two roommates. I had one roommate, and I had another teacher who lived on the second floor. And so, but we were all in the same apartment building. And basically, I was told that this is your room. These are some of the duties that we would share: doing the dishes, we cook our own food, and this is the quarters where we had a schedule for cleaning and stuff like that. I was pretty okay with my roommate because I'd already known her. This is Taiwan. I'd already known her from the Caribbean because we practically went to the same church. So I knew her. So I was okay. I didn't know the guy teacher, but he was pretty down to earth and cool. So I didn't have any issues when I got to Taiwan. When I got to Japan, I had one roommate, and I knew that she was going to be my roommate because she was at my orientation, and they partnered us up at orientation. So they're like, "This is going to be your roommate," and we were already getting along. So Japan was cool. My roommate was she was from California, so yeah, she was from California, but she was Asian.
Mm.
So it was, I felt like, okay, I'll be cool because she knows the culture. So, yeah.
Mm. For me, like I said, my roommate didn't come in until the week after. She came from Tennessee. She, however, had an induction. She had an
Oh,
induction over there in the States. I can't remember where they went to, but obviously, me coming from Jamaica, I didn't get to have, an orientation like they did. So she was coming in from Tennessee. She came in the week after, and it was fine when she came in. It was okay. Katrina, her name was. We got on. We got on for most of the time. We had our moments. Like I said in the video before, cultural difference in how we're raised and all of that, played a part in the fact that sometimes there were a little bit of, conflict or disagreement, but it wasn't anything major, anything that, we couldn't work out. So for, her being, roommates or us being roommates, it was fairly okay. It was good.
cool. So yeah, I know, I remember one night, and this was very early in my arrival. As I was there, I got up and I looked around the house and there was no one. I went to my roommate's room door, knocked on it. I didn't hear a sound. So this was, I think we'd gone to the school, came back home, and I didn't see her. So
Mm.
I'm like, I was feeling like a little bit scared because I was new and there was nobody else close by to me. Even though my brother was already in Taiwan, my brother was in another town, and it was at least maybe about an hour or so train ride to get to where he was. So he wasn't in my immediate surroundings. So I walked around the house and I was like, no roommate. I called her, I didn't get her. And then she came back and she had been there prior to me being there. She was already there at least a year.
Mm.
So she knew, the place and stuff like that, but she was gone. And I was like, I kind of felt like I was just left alone. I didn't have anyone to talk to. And, you're in a place where you're the only one speaking English except for your roommates, or the other teachers. And
Yeah.
I was at a place at a smaller school, so there were literally 3 teachers in the entire school.
Mm.
So she would be my only like company and person to talk to outside of work. So
Mhm.
when I got there, I was like, So she had already had her own friends and her own things, but so I had to figure out how to find my way and to gain new friends. She had gone up with her students, and I was just home. So I kind of felt a little bit lonely, and I just remember that stood out to me because
Yeah.
I'm used to some,
Company.
always having somebody around and stuff like that. That's how it was.
Mhm.
Well, what about you? Any experiences stand out for you?
For me, even before Katrina came, I remember being so scared, and this is why. Before I left Jamaica, remember I was telling you in the previous videos that my friends at uni, all they would say is, "Oh, they're gonna bomb you. You're gonna be this, that, that, whatever." The negative, when it comes on to Russia, because obviously what we associated Russia with, and I think I should stop saying Russia. I'm just going to give a little clarity now before I move on. The reason why I keep saying Russia is because back in those days, I know Russia and Ukraine, because even my students that are watching this, they are really asking, why do I keep saying Russia? Because we know it back then to be the Russian Federation. That is what our church calls it. And I will have my director on the program here. She'll be coming on to also explain how it used to work in those times. It was called the Eurasia Division. And so we refer to it as the Russian Federation because the headquarters, if you like, was in Moscow. Yeah. And it was run by the same director, like we were saying, that Michelle had in Taiwan at the time. And so she came over to control that side of things
After
yeah. So that is why I keep saying Russia, but really it's the Ukraine. I should correct myself. It is the Ukraine. So when obviously people say you're going to Russia, back then I was thinking Russia, but obviously now, as you can tell, I was based in Kiev, Ukraine. So because people kept saying to me back then what would happen, because what we would see and associate with that time, with my experience, would be bread lines, like I told you, the soldiers, guns, and all kind of stuff like that. So when I came, I remember the first day waking up. I woke up late because of the jet lag. Remember, we've been traveling for so many hours. I went to the office. And I'm so glad I had that week anyway, because obviously, you need time to kind of unwind and so on, because school was going to start this September. So I was in the front room. I remember I was in the living room and I heard an explosion. And I was really, really, like shocked by that. I'm like, what is that? You know? And I was scared for a little bit. So I stopped. And I remember getting up. I looked through the window. There was nothing. People were walking about downstairs as normal. And I'm like, what is that? My heart is beating. But because you're remembering what people are saying to you. And it was a loud explosion. So anyway, it happened the next day.
Oh.
Right? It happened the next day. And I remember becoming so scared. I'm thinking, what is that? But I'm scared to even ask Helen and Bob at the time. I remember the third day now it happened. Round about the same time. It was afternoon time, it wasn't morning. It was afternoon time, early afternoon, maybe around 1 or 2. And I heard the same kind of explosion. And I remember going into the office and I said, because normally, for that week, they're over there in the office, they're getting the school ready and everything like that. So she was saying to me, anything you want, come over, talk, whatever. Remember, I'm alone in the apartment. This was before Katrina came. And, I went over there. And I said to her, she's asking, how is it going? Blah blah blah. I'm saying, it's fine. And obviously, her English is not 100%, right? It's not 100%, but enough for her to understand me. So I said to her, I have a question. I'm feeling a little bit scared. She's like, scared? Why are you scared? So I said, I've heard this bomb going off. And she's like, bomb. So she was scared now. She was like, bomb? What are you talking about? I said, for the past 3 days, I've been hearing this loud, explosive sound, explosion. And I'm feeling a little bit, unsettled. Didn't you hear it? She's like, explosion. So she's trying to put her finger onto what like she's wondering, what am I on about, And then I described it to her and I tell her, even the time. And she started to laugh because I didn't know why she was laughing because, I became a little bit offended because I'm like, why are you laughing, But she started to laugh. She said, Joy, there's a tire shop not too far from where you are. So she was explaining to me, because remember, I don't know the area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was my building, and maybe I've bought 2 or 3 buildings further down, there's a tire shop. And I think it's to do with when they're putting the air inside and the big pop sound that you hear. And so, but trust me, it was so loud. And because I was super sensitive to, the things that I was,
that was said to me
before.
Yeah.
I was so scared when I heard those sounds. So she was laughing, and I told her what was said to me, and she's like, no. She's like, those days are gone. She said it wasn't even like that. She was explaining to me now, giving me that peace, that comfort, that peace of mind to say, no, you're not hearing a bomb. It's a tire shop and them, blowing up and it pops and whatever. That is what I'm hearing. So
wow.
Honestly, it was so traumatic for me.
Amazing? Isn't that amazing how, stuff can be placed in your mind and then you begin to feel that, because that's all you're thinking about. So you thought it was going to be something that hurt you, could possibly hurt you. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, for me, I know I shared a little bit about Taiwan and my roommate there, a little bit about Japan. Like I said before in the previous video, we had an entire house for us in Japan. And my roommate and I got to the house and we had to figure out where we wanted to stay. But there were 2 rooms in the house. There was the back room and the front room. So I picked a room, she picked her room. We kind of went through the house. I looked at the kitchen. We had a tatami mat, which was my favorite room, where we would sit on the floor. The table was really low, and we would sit on the floor and we would sit on the chair. The chair didn't have any legs.
Oh.
It was flat on the tatami floor. It was a tatami chair. So that was like the coolest room. We were like, oh, wow, this is so cool. We had a piano and stuff like that. So we were really enjoying, my roommate and I were really enjoying the culture and the house. And everything was just so, Japan to me is so unique in a lot of the things that they have. Even the houses were shorter, the bathrooms and stuff like that. We'll talk more about what the house looks like, but just her and I, we sort of, got along. We had our bikes. We had bikes that we would ride. We picked our bikes and stuff like that. And she told me a little bit about her mom and what her mom did. Her mom would cook all these, she had an Indonesian background, Indonesian food and stuff like that. So we pretty much got along right away. Now, we got along right away, but we did have our differences, as we talked about. We did have quite a few differences that we found, as we went throughout the year. But for the most part, we learned how to get along. We spent a lot of time together. It was just the 2 of us. So it's like it's either us or I don't know. Because we spoke English
together.
Yeah, you're forced together. We spoke English and we also were experiencing this experience together. So some of the issues that you were struggling with, we could share. And Joy was in the Ukraine. So the only way that I could talk to Joy was to write letters, like I said, or email her and let her know, different things that was happening. But for the most part, your roommate was the person that you would see every day. You would, go through the different ups and downs with. And so that was my experience with my roommate, in Japan.
With my roommate, Katrina, we used to talk a lot, like after classes, compared notes and all of that. But our cultures were very different, to be honest. We did do some things together, but most times, because my students were very into wanting to know more about me, the thing is, I'm from Bob Marley's country, and for them, that's so intriguing. And of all well, I wouldn't say of all, but over the years, because as you will learn, I spent more than actually 1 year in the Ukraine. And I became very popular with the students because my English was easy to understand. She had an American twang to her to her language, to her speaking, right? And so, she was not that they had difficulty understanding her, but because I speak clear English, they would gravitate more to me because they could understand, more quickly what I was saying. And so, yeah. And so I was happy. I was really happy for that. So I'm saying that to say they wanted to spend loads of time with me. So most time I would be out with my students, to be honest with you. I'd be out with them at their houses. They would invite me home. They want me to meet their parents, and all of that stuff. So my experience with my roommate was like in the evenings we would offload and talk about our lessons and so on together. But we didn't really hang out as much, on the weekends and so on, because of these my students wanting my time.
Wow. It's interesting that you would say that, they understood you better because they didn't understand me better. But we will get into the students a little bit better, more in the next episode. So what lessons, Joy, have you learned in your meeting your roommate connection? Any lessons learned?
My lesson, to be honest with you, is about I learned two lessons. My experience with the tire shop, it taught me a lot about stereotypical ideas. We form ideas, and sometimes the ideas that we form or the information that's given, it helps to kind of shape, your expectation, if you like. And so we need to be very careful of that because it's the information that I'd gotten previously to coming to the Ukraine that kind of got me so scared, and even, I would believe, yes, if I'd heard that sound, I'd want to know what it was. But had I not been fed with, or, the scary stories of, oh, they're going to bomb you and all of that stuff, then I would be more, I'd be more calm, because I was really, that really shook me up, I'm telling you. And so I learned too that, those things too, what people feed you at times you can really make that become a reality, which is in fact not the reality, of your situation. So, it's best firsthand to, have the experience than to take, what people say, and also the effects of what people say can have on your experience as well. You understand? We need to allow God to lead us. With Katrina, my roommate, I learned that cultures, though different, we need to be, we need to embrace, other people, because it doesn't mean that any one culture is the right culture. You understand? Like I said before, God's culture is a culture that we ought to be aspiring to be a part of, and to ground our experiences and how we treat others that's where that needs to be. So that's kind of my takeaway, my lesson from that experience of having, to live with a roommate there.
Yeah. Well, so lessons learned. I would say that I didn't have too much conflict with my roommate in Taiwan. Even as my roommates, I enjoyed my roommates and we had a lot of good times together. I had some conflict with my roommate in Japan, even though we got along. There were moments that we had conflict just because our cultures were different. Like I said, my roommate in Japan was Asian to begin with, and there was some level of understanding that she had for the Asian culture. I'm coming from a black culture. I'm coming from the islands, the Caribbean, where the culture is vastly different, even from folks that live in Africa or folks that even live in America. I was coming directly from the islands, so basically there were times when she expected certain things of me that I didn't do, and I expected certain things of her that she didn't do. There was this thing called saving face, which was an Asian thing where there's some things that you just wouldn't do, and I didn't know about that culture, and I think that sometimes that rubbed her in the wrong way. And so I would say that I've learned to step back and sort of pay more attention and be more cautious and careful with what is important to her. And that in a way helped me to become a little bit more less selfish, in what I wanted and how I wanted things to do. So I had to learn how to just listen more, watch more, understand better, and give people the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes, God is calling us to difficult situations to help us to grow past where we are in our walk with Him, because we're not going to always see eye to eye with each other, whether it's somebody you work with, somebody you go to church with, whether it's even your spouse. Sometimes you don't see eye to eye, and you have to learn how to just step back and allow God to open up your heart just to be a little bit more mindful, thoughtful, and open to doing what is best for the relationship, and for most importantly for the mission, because you're not there to fight with your roommate. You're there,
you're a team, you're working
to bring a message of hope.
Amen.
Exactly.
Amen.
To others. So that's my lesson learned, just to be more open and available for God to open up your heart and to treat others better. So
come to the end of
another episode. We'll see you once again in the next episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Please, we're asking you
like
guys,
our content,
share this with others.
There's a lot more to come. Stay tuned. Bye.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Joy.
I live in the US.
And I live in England.
And we were across the world
on a mission.